Perfect. So just to give everyone the background, we began this initiative after the 2019 conference that was in Singapore. And the reason is we had a couple of people approach us around actually supporting women in their leadership journey as they're a senior lecturer or associate professor. And because of it can be quite tricky to get promoted. And Sue and I were approached, and after we were approached, we chatted with people such as Petrea and some of our other women in the society to talk about why and how we should have such an initiative. One of the reasons is that there really is still quite a strong gender imbalance in senior academic positions. And we thought that having some sort of mentoring program would really help to allow people to apply for grants and potentially be more successful, as well as perhaps be promoted. So while it's not the main focus, it is something that some people have done from the last 2-year program. So we took that away, Sue and I, and then COVID hit. So we did wait 12 months. And in those 12 months, both Elaine and Petrea came on to the executive, and they were perfect people to actually really lead and drive this initiative. And so that's exactly what's happened. So we're just finishing our first cohort that was for a lot across the 2 years. And the idea is that it also provides mentoring opportunities for senior women academics who are either associate professor or at professor level. And it really, for the participants, it really allows them to actively think about and plan their promotion journey. And I found that particularly true with some of the guest speakers that we have. And I know Elaine will talk about that on a slide in a little while. And some of those guest speakers really talked about how they planned that. And that came across really strongly to me. Okay, next slide.
Yeah, too quick.
So there's quite a few benefits that we did find. And you can see here that when we put it together, we thought, what are the benefits? And these are some of them. And particularly around that opportunity for networking and able to create contacts that we didn't know. And particularly for me, participating, I really found that. And I was put in a group with 2 people that I didn't already know. So, and I mean, as president, I do know lots of people. So I found that fantastic because it meant that I was creating and growing my network, but also it allowed me to really start fresh with some people. Now, is there anything, Petrea, Sue, or Elaine, you want to add around the benefits?
Good networking opportunities.
Yeah,
I'll talk a bit about my benefits when I speak later.
Okay, great. Okay, fantastic. Now, I'm terribly sorry, everyone, that I do need to leave and have fun with Petrea, Sue, and Elaine. See you guys.
Chris. Okay, so just a little bit about how we've been running the Women in Academic Leadership Initiative, or we call it WiAL or WiAL for sure, because we all love a good acronym. But so it's a 2-year program, and in the we're just coming up to the end of our first session, and we had 9 groups. So we have a mentor, so it's more of a group mentoring process, like Chris mentioned. So usually 2 mentees to 1 mentor. So if you're a level C, you'd have a level D as a mentor. If you're a level D, you'll have a level E as a mentor. And apologies to, who was a person from New Zealand? Was it Joe? Oh, Gloria. Yeah. Well, you're also at Sydney Uni, so you get what I mean when I talk about level A, B, C, D, E. Yeah. And yeah, we had a couple of groups that had 3 mentees, so they were a little bit bigger, those groups. But we sort of when we got all of the expressions of interest in, we tried to match people either from similar disciplines or similar areas, or people that had not perhaps met before, didn't know each other, to create a mix. But it's sort of a little bit flexible to start with, but we make some suggested groups. And then really it's up to each mentoring group to work out the frequency that they want to meet, what their aims are, what they hope to get out of the program. But we do run a series of whole group webinars. So for the sort of 27 people who were part of the program these last 2 years, we all come together sort of every couple of months to hear from usually a professor. So you can see there's probably some familiar names on the screen there. Oh, actually, I've missed a few. Just got the wrong one. There was a couple more as well. For example, we had Marianne Diva and Birgit Locke from UNE. But there are sort of speakers come along and sort of talk us through their journey and how they've gotten where they're at the moment, and what some of the challenges have been, what some of the opportunities that they've taken along the way. And there's opportunity then for the group to ask questions. We're always open to have suggestions made for guest speakers. That helps us organize. And sometimes they talk about particular topics. So at the very beginning of the program, we invited all of our participants to share with us things that they would like to get out of the program. And then we looked for people who had those expertise. So for example, Dominique Parrish talked to us about emotional intelligence and a little bit about her research. Angela Carbone and Karen Butler Henderson just recently did a special issue in the Journal of University Teaching and Learning Practice on women in academic leadership. So, they talked to us about that special issue and what their sort of backgrounds were with that. Shelley talked to us about transitional leadership. And Elizabeth Beckman, she also talked to us about fellowship and the benefits of being a fellow in an organization. So there's just some of the examples of the webinars that we've run. In terms of, so we ask each group to sort of do an interim report, just a brief kind of synopsis of what their achievements have been. And this list here was from sort of halfway through, so after a year. And you can see some examples there, included obviously promotions from, Chris just mentioned she got promotion from C to D. Things like grant applications, sabbatical applications. I know I had a mentee who won a teaching and learning award. And there's also been some opportunities for group collaborations in terms of research. So that's pretty much it from me on the structure of the program, what we've been doing so far. I'm going to hand over to Petrea, who's going to talk a little bit about, so she was a mentor and a mentee, I think. You both? Yeah, you both. But yeah, tell us a little bit about being a mentor.
So I was in a unique position because I was one of the co-chairs, I was a mentee and I was a mentor. And at the time I kind of went, oh, these all seem quite separate and segregated. But over time, between the mentoring group I have here and I have another one within my own university as well, there was some overlap in there, which actually was beneficial, I think, for both groups. One of the big things for me is the establishment of relationships, and we do that in this program using an agreement. So there's a mentoring agreement form where you look at what are the mentees' goals and how often are we going to meet and what are the activities or the discussions that we might undertake during the time. So in my group, we met monthly. Both groups, the mentor and the mentee groups, met monthly. And of course, we're going to be wrapping up very shortly and moving on to the next cohort of people. And we'll talk at the end about how you might get involved as a mentor and a mentee, because the forms and etc. are all online and ready for you to fill in. So as a mentee, I really wanted formal networking opportunities, particularly when we had gone through COVID and I made a very conscious choice not to go to virtual conferences because I found that I wasn't, I was time poor. And what did I skip doing? I just didn't go to the conference part. So I made a very conscious decision not to do that anymore after the first one. And for me, that networking opportunity really meant that there had to be trust, there had to be openness, there had to be respect. We looked at some beneficial mutual benefits. So sometimes the mentees and the mentors get opportunities that are different than they would perhaps if they hadn't been in that collaborative group. So I was with some of the people that I've been with, I had never met before, so it was an expansion of my network. Some of them were people whose names I knew, and some of them were totally, I had no idea who they were and where they were from. So that whole establishing some sort of rules of engagement was important for each group to undertake. So what was I doing as a mentee? I was trying to decide if I would go for promotion. I was going, I haven't got any grants, so I probably won't get promoted. So how do I get some grants? And time management was one that our both mentee and mentor groups spoke about. When is it time to say no? How, stopping taking on too much, making sure that the elements and the work that you do actually contributes to your academic improvement and is something that is working at the next level, if that's what you're after. If you're after promotion, then how does this contribute to that? So if you're after a grant, how does what you do contribute to that, etc. In both groups, actually, sometimes one issue came up from one of the mentees and we just spent the whole time talking about that. So problem solving, how to work their way through that issue, looking at it from different perspectives, because of course we're all from different universities, so we had different ways of viewing particular conflict or problematic issues that arose. So sometimes that in itself was enough to drive the 1 hour conversation that we had in the month. Other times there was homework to do. So, for my mentees, we spent some time looking at sharing and providing opportunities for feedback for things like bios. Now everyone wants your bio. I just had a look. The program for the Women in Academic Leadership, there's a section there for you to add your bio in. So making sure that it was clear, concise, and it actually represented you as a person. And there was promotion feedback in one group, or other, applications for, if we're in the US, I would call it something different to here. And I'm just trying to think, for you to stay, get tenure, basically. So there were those sorts of applications where feedback was given by the people in the group. There was a lot of career conversations, where did people really want to go? What did that really mean? And a lot of collegial conversation. I think that dealing with the uncomfortable work situation was, for some people, a really important thing to talk about, because they felt that they couldn't have that conversation in their own institution. So it did provide some other things. And of course, the possibility of collaborative research is already there. My mentees and I came up with what I think is a great project, but none of us have time to undergo and to get it started. So if only we all had more time, and maybe next year I will have more time and things will change and we can still do that project. I've found both those roles really enjoyable, and I continue to learn from both the mentor and obviously the mentees too. So I'd like to invite you to apply to either be a mentor or a mentee or both for the next 2-year cohort. That's it from me.
Thank you, Petrea. Sue, do you want to share a little bit about your experience being a mentor?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I had 2 people that I did not know, and they were not in my field. I'm in education. One was in psychology and the other one in environmental education. So completely like one over in both of them really in sciencey type areas. So the psychology was senior lecturer, and as much as she's ready for promotion, she wasn't ready to apply last year or this year, as in time-wise. And the one that was in the environmental and rural education, she was applying for promotion last year. She was 100% nervous about it. And she got up. She was brilliant. And since then, interestingly, so we meet monthly and we have homework every month and goal setting all the time. How are you going achieving your goals? But interestingly, you know, people might go, well, I'm a professor now, I'll just rest, I don't have to do anything else. She decided that she would continue. So she's now the teaching and learning expert in her school. So, you know, in my school, I'd call it chair of teaching and learning. I'm unsure what you'd say in your areas. But so for her, there was a lot of questions because this was a role that she was really unfamiliar with, and how to deal with the extra workload, all of that sort of thing. So they were the sorts of things she was doing. And the psychology person, she's a discipline program manager, and they have something like 300 students or something they're applying every year, and she has to interview every single one of them. So she's just a tad busy, and then obviously teaching. Like I said, she's well and truly ready to be promoted, but she has to have it in her head that she's ready to apply and take the time to write an application. Otherwise, both my mentees, we love catching up. We enjoy our little hour every month. And, you know, I go along, you know, I'm setting goals too. So they're holding me accountable as much as I'm holding them. And it's a very good relationship. And it's just nice to know other people outside your university area of expertise, states even, and yeah, so I really encourage you to take on these roles. It's just a good way to collaborate and network, and they'll introduce you into things that you wouldn't have thought of, and going forward, take you forward. And actually, and that's the thing with this, is because it's very confidential and honesty, you can actually be upfront about what you actually think should happen. And that was the person that was going for professor. I just had to tell her that she's ready. Believe in yourself. She wasn't believing in herself. She had to do that. And once she did, I mean, I think she must have really walked that in easily, I think, because I thought she was amazing. She was on the ARC College of Experts. I think that sort of puts you there straight away. Anyway, enough from me, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Sue. So, I mean, I've also got some experiences. So I've been as a mentor on the program this last 2 years, and I actually sometimes feel like maybe I learn more than my mentees. I learn more from them than they learn from me. But it's not about teaching, of course, it's about sharing and growing together, but definitely has been my experience. So I think we might just open for questions at this point, see if there's anything that we haven't made clear, or anything in your head, or any specific things you want to ask about the setup. Thanks, everyone. Lovely to meet you all. Hopefully we'll see you again at some point in the near future.